Whatever excuse you need to go to bed at night.
Shut up. Do you want me to edit this one for you or not?
I mean, I'd appreciate it. Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown, the unofficial sumo podcast for official sumo fans. This is Ryan.
This is Jake.
And this is our breakdown of the Natsu 2024 Banzuke, which came out one day later than I was expecting, as the day that Banzuke was typically supposed to come out, which was April 29th in Japan, was Showa Day, which no idea what that holiday is, but it is a holiday in Japan. So they delayed it one day to Tuesday the 30th, or when, I don't know how it works, but yeah, I think Tuesday the 30th, because we're recording this currently on Tuesday the 30th, and that's what threw me off. But yesterday was Tuesday the 30th for Japan.
Yeah, I'm glad we got there.
Yeah.
For the record, Showa Day is like commemorating the Showa period, which is like, I think, the 20s through like the 80s or so, like the realm of one of the prior emperors.
Okay.
Like we're currently in the Reiwa era.
Yeah. And it was Heisei preceding this one. So Showa preceded Heisei.
Yep. So it's just like a commemorate this period of our history kind of deal.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah. Tachi has an article on Japan national holidays. They have so many more than we do.
Oh, I know. If they get all of those off of work, it's absolute bullcrap, and I demand a recount.
Yeah, you have a problem with American working culture? No.
It's weird. I mean,
how dare you speak up?
Me, as somebody that works full time from home, probably on one of the better ends of that deal, I have very little room to complain.
And it's still a bummer a lot of the time.
I'm not gonna. I actually really like my job, so I'm not here to complain about that.
You're the one ruining it for the rest of us, aren't you?
I'm sorry.
You're ruining it for the rest of us.
Let's move on to the Banzuke, which had its ups and downs, had its surprises, as they all do. We'll start in the Sanyaku rank, where, as always, no surprise, Takerufuji, the lone Rikishi at Yokozuna. They did not, in fact, promote Takerufuji up to Yokozuna following his historic Yusho win. Don't know why, but they just decided to stick with Takerufuji there, I guess.
Hey, real quick, you're gonna bury the lead here? Are you gonna say the big news or what?
Are we talking about guess the Banzuke standings?
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna save that for the end, but yes, I did drop out of first place following this Banzuke.
How am I supposed to mock you the whole episode if we don't even mention it at the top?
I don't want to make this whole thing about me. I want it to be about the Banzuke. Then we make it about me.
Usually I agree with you, but this time I'd love to make it all about you.
Yeah, you know what? I fucked up. I finished 91st, and I have no idea when the last time I finished that poorly in the Guess the Banzuke rankings. It's been a hot minute.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Please proceed, though.
So from there, we have our 4 Ozeki, and in order, we have Hoshoryu, the newly minted Koto Zakura, we have Takakeisho, and then we have Kirishima. So as mentioned, Koto Zakura has finally shed the Shikona of his father, Koto Nowaka, to take up the Shikona of his Yokozuna grandfather who preceded him, of Koto Zakura. I like that Shikona a lot better than Koto Nowaka. I feel like that's befitting of an Ozeki. Koto Nowaka sounds childish, and Koto Zakura sounds like a full-ass man. So,
well, I think Waka like literally means youth or something, right?
Maybe that's where I'm getting that from.
I could do it, I suppose.
Yeah. But yeah, and then Kirishima, our bottom ranked Ozeki, he is the only one that is in danger of being demoted back down to Sekiwake following his 5 wins in March. He will need to have 8 wins in order to maintain his rank. All other Ozeki will have their rank protected, which in the case of Takakeisho, very lucky for him, as he's coming off of that injury that he suffered once again at the end of the last Basho. I do have my rankings pulled up. So from Guess the Banzuke, the last time that I scored 91st, or this is my second worst Guess the Banzuke placement of all time.
Wow.
Second only to 105th place that I had in January of 2021.
That's
Um,
pretty early on, isn't it?
yeah, and I messed up the number of Sanyaku ranks.
Oh, right. And that just like kind of screws you for the whole Banzuke when that happens, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it this one didn't go well for me, to say the least. But you know what? We're gonna learn. We're gonna move on. We're gonna do better. We're gonna fight to get back up into first place. It is going to be tough for me this year, with that 91st place hanging over my head. It won't go away until this time next year. So it's going to be tough for me to scrape back up there. I'm going to just try to stay in the top 10 for the rest of this year until that goes away. And hopefully we don't add any more big numbers there. So we'll move down to Sekiwake ranks. This isn't the part that messed me up. We're going to have at Sekiwake East, Wakamoto Haru. This is going to mark his sixth basho as a Sekiwake, but it's going to be his first one as the top-ranked Sekiwake East. And we have Abi rising up from Komosubi to re-ranked Sekiwake for the third time in his career and the first time in 2 years. Then at Komosubi, we're just going to keep on rolling because nothing surprising happens yet. We have Asanoyama at Komosubi East for the first time since he returned from his suspension 2 years ago. He is going to be in the Sanyaku ranks with the hopes of returning to Ozeki. He has said that is his stated goal. And he's rising after a 9-6 record from Maegashira 1. But some news that came out last week, Asanoyama did suffer an MCL injury late in the Jungyo tour, and his prognosis was 3 weeks of rest, which very much interferes with the start of the upcoming basho. So Asanoyama very iffy to start the basho, but as we've seen over the past year for him, he's very willing to fight while injured to try to keep his place on the Banzuke. So we'll see what Asanoyama manages to do this basho. And then at Komosubi West, we have the unstoppable up to this point in his career, Ono Sato. He becomes the second fastest rikishi ever to make it to the Sanyaku ranks following his pro debut. He rises 5 ranks from Maegashira 5, following his second consecutive 11-win basho to start his Makuuchi career, and he is just behind Ichi Nojo, who made it to Sanyaku in his 6th career basho, just one basho faster than Ono Sato did, who made it there in his 7th career basho.
Yeah, for Ichinojo, if I remember right, he got like a Jun Yusho or something like that in his debut. So like up until his debut, he was just as hot of a prospect as Ono Sato, starting in Makushita, rocketed just as far up, and then yeah, just one basho quicker. I think his Jun Yusho and his debut in the top division, I think sent him straight to Sekiwake or something.
Yeah, they treated upcoming Juryo Rikishi a little differently back when Ichinojo debuted in 2014. So he debuted in Makuuchi at Maegashira 10, and then he had a 13-2, as you mentioned, Jun Yusho there. And just based on the way everything fell, that just opened a slot right up to Sekiwake for Ichinojo. So he really got lucky to get up there. And you know what? Ono Sato, similarly lucky to get up there, that things felt just right. Because we've seen before, I remember Hokuto Fuji going 11-4 for Maegashira 4 and having to settle for like Maegashira 1 or 2 just because there's such a backup. So Ono Sato similarly lucky that the cards aligned for him to land at Komosubi in just his 7th career basho. Be very interesting to see if he can string together another 11-win basho. I have my doubts, but I'm hopeful.
That would certainly do it, though, to get a Sekiwake rank, even if he had to force one open, I think.
Absolutely. Then at the Zone of Death, the top Maegashira ranks, the rikishi that are expected to face a full slate of Ozeki, Sekiwake, Yokozuna, provided they all compete. We have Atami Fuji at Maegashira 1 East, returning to the Maegashira 1 rank after one basho down at Maegashira 2. He had an 8-7 record there, and if he's able to secure any form of winning record, he will force his way into the Sanyaku ranks for the first time in his career. All he needs to do is get 8 wins, and he will absolutely force open a Komosubi slot. And then we have another return to the Maegashira 1 rank in Daiei Geisho, but I'm guessing he's a little less happy to be returning to this rank than Atami Fuji is. His 6-9 record from Sekiwake dropped him outside of the Sanyaku ranks for the first time since January of last year. So up to this point, my prediction has been perfect. We got the first 11 Rikishi exactly as they were supposed to go. No real surprises there. And then we're going to get to Maegashira 2. My Banzuke prediction is going to go off the rails a little bit. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you see that we have my prediction side by side with what the actual Banzuke is. And starting at Maegashira 2 East, when my prediction starts to go off the rails, you're going to see some splashes of color on the actual Banzuke. If somebody is highlighted in green, that means they went a little bit higher than I expected them to go. If they're highlighted red, it means they went a little bit lower than I expected them to go. And the darker the shade, it means the further off I was with my prediction. So we're going to start at Maegashira 2 East, where I'm actually pretty happy and disappointed to see that it is not Takerufuji who took this spot. The spot that I didn't put him here in my prediction, but I really, really, really wanted to. I'm glad that I let my head overrule my heart there, because Takerufuji did not sniff Maegashira 2. So
that would have been a problem for you if you had him there.
Yeah, it would have made things even worse than it already was. And I'm going to say, it's like, my Banzuke prediction is it's not terrible. It's just a lot of people did a lot better than me, but it's not a terrible prediction.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that Takerufuji didn't end up there, because my logic and my reasoning for keeping him out of that spot was correct. But I am disappointed on a personal level that we're not going to be seeing Takerufuji this high up in the Banzuke.
Give it about 2 months or so.
Yeah. But also, I didn't get this spot right, even with my head prediction. I had Takayasu taking this spot, but instead it is Hiradoumi rising to his career high rank of Maegashira 2 East. So congratulations to Hiradoumi for breaking his west side curse and finally making it over to the east side of the Makuuchi Banzuke for the second time in his career. I'm sure that is something he's been working hard towards for the past year and a half. And to see him finally get that achievement of being on the east side of the Banzuke,
it's inspiring.
I'm just so proud of him, and I need to channel his energy, his effort, kind of study what he did to make it this far so that I can make it back up to the upper echelons of the Guess the Banzuke rankings.
There you go.
And with Hiradoumi going ahead of Takayasu, it does seem that for the second basho in a row, the Banzuke committee chose to break ties in favor of a higher ranked Rikishi when it came to filling up the joy, as opposed to the Rikishi that had the most wins. Because Hiradoumi, Gonoyama, Takayasu, all three of those Rikishi deserved the exact same rank, which was Maegashira 1 West. And Hiradoumi had the fewest wins of those, but was the highest ranked. And he was the one that went first of those three. So that is something, with it happening 2 bashos in a row in the joy area, that's something I'm going to have to adjust my calculus for predicting Banzukes, I think, moving forward. And as I mentioned on the preview episode, no matter if the order for Hiradoumi, Gonoyama, and Takayasu was determined by the highest ranked Rikishi or the Rikishi with the most wins, Gonoyama would fall in the middle of those and would land at Maegashira 2 West. And that is exactly what ended up happening, as he moved up 4 ranks to his career high ranking of Maegashira 2 West. So this puts Takayasu rising 5 ranks to Maegashira 3 East, following his 11-4 record and his 8th career June Yusho. And at Maegashira 3 West, this was the only spot Tobizaru had left to rise if he were going to get any promotion. And rise he did from Maegashira 4 East to Maegashira 3 West, following his 8-7 record. So we're still not seeing Takerufuji land yet. I predicted him Maegashira 5. I wanted him Maegashira 2. And I said there was a range of anywhere from Maegashira 2 to Maegashira 6. I'd believe it. So still not seeing Takerufuji yet to figure out what kind of logic the Banzuke committee used to place him, what sort of boost he would see, similar to what we saw for Terunofuji and Tokushoryu when they won Yushos from Maegashira 17, as both of those guys definitely went ahead of other Rikishi. But before we get to Takerufuji, we've got to go through the Maegashira 4 rank for Oho and Ura, as I talked a lot on the prediction episode about I don't think these two were going to be over demoted in favor of Takerufuji. It was the ultimate reason why I didn't place Takerufuji as high as I wanted to, and neither one of them did. Both Oho and Ura deserve to be the same rank, which was Maegashira 4 East. Only one of them could take it, and it ended up being Oho dropping one rank following a 7-8 record from Maegashira 3 East, and he went there instead of the higher ranked Ura, who dropped to Maegashira 4 West following his 6-9 record from Maegashira 1. So you see, we're just outside of the joy at this point, and it's reverted back to breaking the tie based on who had more wins as opposed to who was ranked higher. Because if they had used the same tiebreaker logic as they did for Hidatu Umigo no Yama and Takayasu, Ura would have gone ahead of Oho as he was previously higher ranked. We could go even deeper, and like maybe it's a thing of, well, if it's two guys falling, they're using one set of logic versus guys rising, they're using another set of logic for breaking ties. Don't know yet, don't have that data, and that's probably thinking way too hard about this. At least,
yeah,
way more harder than I already think about these.
You're already too in the weeds, but like, yes, yeah,
but
not terminally so.
Yeah, there's just a baseline of that for anybody that's doing Guess the Banzuke.
Yeah, that's a good point. Signing up for Guess the Banzuke means you're in too deep. So like getting to that point, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We'll move on to Maegashira 5. It really seemed like the door was wide open for me to be absolutely correct about Takerufuji and for him to land at the Maegashira 5 East spot, as I predicted after many, many hours and paragraphs struggling to find his place on the Banzuke. Maybe just once I could get the Rikishi that I overthought things with the most to land in that right spot. But of course, that is not what happened. The Banzuke committee decided that I made things way too complicated when I was thinking about Takerufuji, and instead they put Onosho at Maegashira 5 East. So how did the Banzuke committee come to this conclusion? And honestly, it was very simple. They just followed the math. They just followed the standard Banzuke math. Onosho was the next Rikishi that deserved to be ranked following his 9-6 record for Maegashira 8.
So they did that.
So that's what they did.
Okay.
And then following Onosho, the next Rikishi that deserved to be ranked was Meisei, following his 6-9 record for Maegashira 2. So he landed at Maegashira 5 West. Very simple. These two Rikishi, by the simple Banzuke math, deserve to be ranked ahead of Takerufuji. And Onosho was on the east side while Meisei was on the west side, so that's why Onosho goes ahead of Meisei. Turns out this was a very clear and simple situation according to the Banzuke committee, because we get to Maegashira 6 East, and that is indeed where Takerufuji will land following his 13-2 Yusho winning performance from Maegashira 17. He goes ahead of precisely 0 Rikishi and becomes the lowest ranked Rikishi following a Yusho ever.
By that you mean he went ahead of 0 Rikishi that he otherwise wouldn't have?
Correct. Yeah, because the reason I bring that up is because, and I brought up Terunofuji and Tokushoryu as the previous Maegashira 17 Yusho winners. They're the reason why I thought Takerufuji would get some sort of a boost, because both of those guys, following their Yusho wins, ended up at Maegashira 1 and Maegashira 2 respectively, and in order to do that, they both went ahead of Rikishi that they otherwise deserved to be ranked behind.
So if the Yusho wasn't in play, those guys got a boost compared to where they would have been if it was pure math, and Takerufuji did not. Is that
Correct.
the conclusion? Okay.
Yeah, I would assume that the U show had something to do with why they got more than the mathematical boost up the Banzuke than they received. So yeah, whether it's due to a new head of the Banzuke committee, since those two won their U shows back in 2020, or whether it's the Banzuke committee just not wanting to over promote a Rikishi that is just starting his career. Um, who knows? But hopefully this is not a situation we need to deal with ever again. Let's just be done with the Maegashira 17 U shows. Let's just call an end to that. There's enough already. It makes my predictions bad. I don't like it. But one thing that this new Banzuke committee, so since January of last year when Issei Gahama got caught up in the bullying scandal where I don't think he reported things correctly, and he got stripped of his position and demoted in the JSA, and he is no longer the head of the Banzuke committee. Something that I am continually being taught by this Banzuke committee is to stop trying to make so many special exceptions and just follow the damn math. So I have added in my Banzuke spreadsheet that I use for predictions for my Nagoya prediction at the very top that I will have every single time on my prediction from now on. Forefront and center, it's just going to say follow the math to remind me that stop overcomplicating things. Sometimes it's just as easy as following the simple math.
There you go.
Speaking of special exceptions, at Maegashira 7 East, we have Nishikigi dropping 7 ranks following his 3-12 record from Komusubi. Oh, I didn't feel sorry. I
Yeah,
apologize.
we're at 6 West.
Yeah, who cares? Midori Fuji falls 1 rank from Maegashira 5 West to Maegashira 6 West following.
All right, get back on that train record. Then. All right.
Yeah. Oh, I do have one correction. On the preview episode, I had said that it was Ryo Goku that ended up at Maegashira 5 following his Maegashira U show that he had won back in 1914, and that was the previous lowest ranked Rikishi. That was incorrect. Ryo Goku actually ended up at Maegashira 3. It was Yamanishiki in the 30s that ended up at Maegashira 5 East following his U show win, which was previously the lowest ranked a Rikishi had been following a U show win, which, as I mentioned before, Takerufuji is now the lowest ranked Rikishi following a top division U show.
Just setting records left and right.
Oh, I know. Everything this guy does is breaking a record. That's all he does. And I don't remember if I mentioned it, but because of Takerufuji ending up as the lowest ranked Yusho winner ever, I am making him a snub of the Banzuke candidate.
Absolutely. Yep. No objection here.
Yeah. All right. Back to the special exception that is Nishikigi. So as I mentioned, he's dropping 7 ranks following his 3-12 record from Komusubi. He is going ahead of 4 Rikishi that he deserved to be ranked behind. Now, 3 of those Rikishi I predicted him to end up behind. 4th of those I did not predict. And because he is ending up ahead of 4 Rikishi he otherwise deserves to be behind, I'm making Nishikigi a luck of the Banzuke candidate for his 2 rank under demotion. And that 4th Rikishi that I did not predict Mace or Nishikigi to end up ahead of was Mitake Yumi, who is rising 3 ranks following his 9-6 record from Maegashira 10 to land at Maegashira 7 West. So my theory for why Nishikigi went ahead of Mitake Yumi is it's one of 2 things. One, simple Sanyaku bias, just all right. He deserves to be 2 ranks behind this guy, but he was in the Sanyaku, so let's just give him an artificial boost up. Or the more complicated theory, which is the one I'm going to obviously latch onto for future Bod's case. There was an opening at Maegashira 7 East that no Rikishi deserved that rank. Mitake Yumi deserved to be ranked Maegashira 7 West because he was previously Maegashira 10 West. And so they just chose to fill that hole with Nishikigi instead of over promoting Mitake Yumi. Because we've seen in the past a lot more when Issei Gahama Oyakata was the head of the Banzuke committee, like you'd see Joy Rikishi dropping down with like 2 wins, 3 wins. They'd be used to like kind of plug holes in the Banzuke. That has been taken away from Rikishi and the Joy. They're treated more like a common every other Maegashira Rikishi, but we're still kind of seeing that with Sanyaku Rikishi, where they're kind of plugging holes and still going ahead of people they otherwise deserve to be behind. So then we get to Maegashira 8 East, and I have Takanosho landing there. Not I have. That's where he ended up. This isn't my prediction episode.
So does everyone else. Got
it. Dropping 5 ranks from Maegashira 3 following his 5-10 record. So he does receive enough joy bias to go ahead of both Koto Shoho and Tamawashi, who would otherwise deserve to be ranked ahead of Takanosho based on them having more wins than Takanosho had in the previous Basho. And this is another thing that's been fairly firm recently with this new Banzuke committee. It took me doing really bad on a Banzuke to kind of really have these new tendencies of this Banzuke committee hammered into me, but this has been consistent. The Sanyaku bias has been consistent. Recently, the tiebreakers by highest ranked Rikishi to fill up the joy rather than the one with more wins has been consistent. But joy bias is now been reduced to it's good enough to break ties with other Rikishi that deserve to be the same rank as you, but that's about it. It can overcome east-west side bias. It can overcome somebody having more wins than you that deserves that same rank. That's as far as it's going to take a joy Rikishi nowadays, and that's what Takanosho got here, breaking that tie with Tamawashi and Koto Shoho, who otherwise deserve to be ranked ahead of Takanosho.
Gotcha.
So on the preview, I was kind of stuck in this tangle of Rikishi for a little while with Nishikigi, Takanosho, Koto Shoho, and Tamawashi. I didn't expect Takayumi to kind of get stuck in there too. But I knew that there was one of these kind of rules that I think exist that would need to be broken to get all of these people here, because we couldn't have all of those rules live together in harmony and have the Banzuke layout perfectly. Just how it ended up, there wasn't a way for that to happen. But I wasn't sure which rule would have to break. Obviously, with Nishikigi going ahead of all of them, it wasn't Sanyaku bias, and with Takanosho going ahead of Koto Shoho and Tamawashi, it wasn't joy bias. So I feel good knowing that those two rules seem fairly strong, and they're not going to be something that's pushed aside in favor of the other two things that I was considering. So the rules that had to break were either the wins being the tiebreaker scenario. Now I have to add the caveat win outside of the joy because the higher ranked Rikishi takes those spots now, or not over demoting a Rikishi beyond like what the math says they should be for a Rikishi that doesn't necessarily deserve to be ahead of them since they're tied for the same rank. So I had chosen to preserve the not over demoting a Rikishi rule, and the Banzuke committee chose to go with preserving the rule that wins is the tiebreaker, which honestly is what I would prefer. So Koto Shoho lands at Maegashira 8 West, a 1 rank jump following his 8-7 record, which means Tamawashi falls 2 ranks from Maegashira 7 to Maegashira 9 East after his 7-8 record. So Tamawashi did get over demoted here by a rank because Koto Shoho did deserve to go ahead of him because he had more wins. So now this kind of situation cements the order of operations for me in what rules take precedent over others in this situation. And then Maegashira 9 on the west side, similar to Tobizaru, Shodai needed a promotion following his 8-7 record from Maegashira 10 East, and this was the last spot he could go while still being promoted. So he has to land at Maegashira 9 West, and that's exactly where he ended up. We get to Maegashira 10. Shonan Umi rises 2 ranks to Maegashira 10 East following a 9-6 record from Maegashira 12. He actually deserved to go ahead of Shodai since he had more wins, but he had to give way to Shodai to allow him to receive any form of promotion here.
Yeah, Shodai needs a promotion, and that's more important.
Exactly. Yep. And we already knew that that was the precedence there.
Right.
Maegashira 10 on the west side, Keen Bosan drops 3 ranks to Maegashira 10 West after his 6-9 record from Maegashira 7. We move on swiftly to Maegashira 11, where Sada no Umi rises just a half rank from Maegashira 11 West to Maegashira 11 East after his 8-7 record. Reason he couldn't go any higher is he lost the East-West tiebreaker with Keen Bozon. So he just kind of bad luck for Sada no Umi there to just rise a half rank following his winning record. And then Maegashira 11 West, this is like the one thing that I missed, and I can't really place my finger on it. Can't find like a good explanation that I'm happy with, which is bad for me because a lot of my competitors in Guess the Banzuke got this right when I got it wrong. So I need to figure out what they're seeing that I'm not. But Takerufuji lands at Maegashira 11 West, dropping 2 ranks from Maegashira 9 East following his 6-9 record. So the reason this one is throwing me for a loop is because Takerufuji and Ichi Yamamoto is who I had taking this rank, both deserved to be ranked next. They both deserve to be the same rank. They were previously on the east side, and Ichi Yamamoto had more wins, which is why I had him landing ahead of Takerufuji in my prediction. So I can't figure out why didn't he go ahead of Takerufuji? Takerufuji wouldn't have any form of joy bias. He was Maegashira 9. He wouldn't be over demoted by going behind Ichi Yamamoto. If Takerufuji ended up at Maegashira 12 East, that is exactly where the math says Takerufuji should end up. So the only reasoning that I can figure out is that the Banzuke committee just wanted to make sure that Ichi Yamamoto got a full rank demotion instead of just sliding from the east to west side of the rank. But I just don't like it, and because that's not a rule I can define by math.
No.
That's just kind of like a feeling.
Sometimes they do no demotion, right? So like
we're going to get to a few of those cases, but
so like why is this one a
there
big
is
deal?
mathematical reasons why they do no demotions. But yeah, I don't understand. Yeah, because if somebody doesn't have to move at all, why would it make a difference if they move a half rank over to Maegashira 11 West or drop a full rank to Maegashira 12? So I don't know why tiebreaker that's been very consistent over the past year in the number of wins breaking the tie when we're this far down the Banzuke. I don't know why that wasn't followed here, and I don't know why a lot of my competitors got this right when I got it wrong. So hopefully Leonard at the Tachi blog, I think you got this right. Tim Sumo, let me know what you were thinking.
Please tell
fill
us.
me in. Fill me in.
I'm sorry if you said it, but I missed it. Ichi Yamamoto, did he get an 8-7?
7-8.
Or yeah, sorry, 7-8. So yeah, it's Takerufuji did a 6-9. So like a 6-9, you might force a full demotion, but like 7-8's like whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That's weird. I totally understand why, even though it's only like 2 guys switching like one spot.
Yeah.
It's perplexing and frustrating.
It's the kind of shit that the Banzuke committee just it just points to the evidence that we way overthink this, and the Banzuke committee's just doing whatever the hell they want.
Yeah. It reeks of something where you'd point it out to the guy that did it and they'd be like, oh, whoops.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's just like, we like Takerufuji better than Ichi Yamamoto. So
he showed his brand of sumo more better in this particular basho.
Takerufuji was fighting through a leg injury this time, and his spirit earned him the right to go ahead of Ichi Yamamoto.
That's as good a reason as we can formulate.
Yeah. But no matter the reason, I was wrong, and Ichi Yamamoto drops 1 rank to Maegashira 12 East. Nishiki Fuji lands at Maegashira 12 West, and I think he's getting the first over promotion of this Banzuke to land at Maegashira 12 West as he rises 2 ranks following his 8-7 record from Maegashira 14. Then as we get down to Maegashira 13, Mitoryu becomes the first Juryo Rikishi to be placed on this Banzuke, landing at Maegashira 13 East. And he's landing right after the final Makuuchi Rikishi with the winning record has been placed. Another one of my rules that it's just nice to see is not my rules. Once again, it's just a trend that I've noticed, but that trend continues as no Juryo Rikishi is being placed until the final Makuuchi Rikishi with a winning record has been placed on the Banzuke, despite the Juryo Rikishi deserving to be ranked higher than the other Makuuchi Rikishi here. So nice to see that that trend has continued. This is going to be Mitoryu's third stint in the top division, his fifth top division basho overall, and this will actually be his career high rank as he has never exceeded Maegashira 15 in any of his previous basho.
That's a weird needle to thread.
Yeah.
It's like somebody being Komusubi a whole bunch of times without ever hitting Sekiwake or something.
Yeah, which I don't really know that that's ever happened. The most I can think was like Endo, I think, was Komusubi for 3 or 4 basho.
There's certainly a handful, but
Yeah.
it's weird because it's a really narrow gap. You have to be like super, super good, but like just barely not any better.
Yeah, and the people ahead of you have to be blocking you from those spots as well. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of the Juryo interchange has that kind of a thing, but that's funny that Mitoryu 4 basho and never higher than 15. That's funny.
Mm-hmm. Maegashira 13 West. This is one gamble that I did get right, as I had Chura no Umi maintaining his previous rank following a 7-8 record for Maegashira 13 West, and that is exactly what happened. When you looked at it, it was a tie between Chura no Umi and Juryo Rikishi Oshoma for who deserved this rank. And as always, the Rikishi coming up from Juryo got the shaft. So Chura no Umi goes ahead of him here. This is like a situation, well, like, could have looked at it similar to like Ichi Yamamoto. It's like, well, he got 7 and 8. We want to make sure he got demoted. There's a Juryo Rikishi that deserved the same rank as him. So we very easily could have moved Chura no Umi down in favor of Oshoma, but that's not what happened. Then Oshoma actually continues to get the shaft at Maegashira 14 East, which is longer than I thought he would receive the shaft, because he did not land.
Let's work on our phrasing here a little bit.
I said what I said. Instead of Oshoma landing at Maegashira 14 East, we have a luck of the Banzuke candidate Ryuden, dropping only 1 rank following his 6-9 record from Maegashira 13. And he lands here despite Oshoma deserving to be 2 ranks ahead of Ryuden, which is really surprising for a Juryo Rikishi that deserves to be 2 ranks ahead of somebody to not go ahead of them from recent Banzukes. But I think I know why. I think this is another case of Oshoma being outside of the Juryo Joy, which would be Juryo 1 through Juryo 3, and not getting as good as treatment as those Rikishi. Because we're going to get to it. We'll see that the Rikishi that were promoted from Juryo that were in the Juryo Joy got much better treatment than what we're seeing Oshoma get here.
Interesting. Okay.
But the Banzuke committee would deny Oshoma no longer, and he makes his top division debut at Maegashira 14 West, following an 11-4 record from Juryo 4. So this, like the Juryo Joy, is something that I talked about. We saw this with Takerufuji as well, because he was Maegashira 10, got a 13-2 record to force his way up into Makuuchi, and he deserved to be ranked ahead of people like Endo. Endo might have been the only one that I could think of, but he deserved to be 2 ranks ahead of Endo, and we saw him on the previous Banzuke end up behind Endo as well. So I'm thinking it's because you're outside the top Juryo range, and so you're not going to quite get the same treatment as those top guys might.
You get a little extra something that they send the Juryo way. Gotcha.
Exactly. And the Maegashira 14 rank, unfortunately, was really the beginning of the end for my prediction, as things just kind of spiraled out of control from here.
Oh, dear.
So at Maegashira 15 East, we have another Rikishi making his top division debut. It is Toki Hayate, rising up 3 ranks following his 8-7 record from the top Juryo spot, Juryo 1 East. I'm making Toki Hayate a luck of the Banzuke candidate. So there was a group of 4 Rikishi that all deserved to be ranked Maegashira 17 that were vying for this Maegashira 15 spot. One of them was a Makuuchi Rikishi, and the other 3 were Juryo Rikishi. So in my prediction, I just assumed that we were just going to be mean to the Juryo Rikishi and give this spot to Tsurugisho. He was the sole Makuuchi Rikishi vying for this spot. And especially because he was on the east side. So even if you wanted to get fancy and say east versus west or something like that, Tsurugisho would still win that argument. But no, the Juryo Joy Rikishi were all treated as equals to Maegashira 6 Tsurugisho. So it's not even like a Maegashira 12 or Maegashira 13 dropping down here like a lower Banzuke guy. This is a Maegashira 6. So somebody that's way up towards the, not way up towards the top, but very much towards the higher side of the Maegashira ranks. And they forced him further down by placing Juryo Rikishi ahead of him. Toki Hayate was the only Juryo Rikishi on the east side vying for this spot, so that is why he went ahead of the other two to land here. But contrasting to that, those Juryo Rikishi that deserved to be ranked Maegashira 17 did not deserve to be ranked ahead of Roga, who deserved to be Maegashira 16 based on his previous rank and record. But since those guys didn't deserve to be ranked ahead of him, that allowed Roga to keep his previous rank of Maegashira 15 West following his 7 and 8 record. Then at Maegashira 16 East, Tsurugisho continues to slide down the Banzuke in favor of Juryo Rikishi as Tomokaze lands here. So what I find especially interesting about this spot is that Tsurugisho was on the east side and Tomokaze was on the west side of the Banzuke. But Tomokaze was able to overcome both anti-Juryo bias and east side bias to still go ahead of Tsurugisho here. So once again, I'm diving way too deep into the weeds, but this is what I'm going to latch onto for future Banzukes. I think what I may have overlooked is that the bottom of the top division is an unbalanced Banzuke. We're ending at Maegashira 17 East and leaving like this mythical nebulous Maegashira 17 West never to be filled. So I'm wondering if maybe the Banzuke committee treats these Juryo Rikishi as if they're a half rank higher than what the Banzuke says they actually are, to kind of make up for that lack of Maegashira 17 West. So like Toki Hayate, instead of being treated as Juryo 1 East, maybe he was kind of treated as Maegashira 17 West. And so that allows for the easy way to jump over Tsurugisho. And Tomokaze, instead of being Maegash or Juryo 3 West, maybe they kind of treated him as Juryo 3 East. And then at least you have him and Tsurugisho both deserving the exact same spot. And if we're deciding Juryo Joy Rikishi, we're going to treat the same as Maegashira Rikishi. Tomokaze had more wins. He would go ahead of Tsurugisho. So that's the jumps in logic that I had to make this make sense.
You're getting real string on a cork board here. Like,
when haven't I been though?
I don't know, man. I feel like that might be too far, but yeah, like we say
but
every
it makes
time.
Sense.
I don't know. Does it? Sense. I guess.
Kinda. I can make it make sense for me, and that's all I need. I don't need to explain myself to you. Despite
attempting
doing
to
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Despite that's all what these episodes are.
On average, every single month.
Yeah. So yeah. If we use that same logic that we're kind of pretending these Juryo Rikishis are a half rank higher than they actually are, that would also explain why Takerufuji would land at Maegashira 16 West instead of Tsurugisho, who continues to slide down the Banzuke. So Takerufuji is somebody that I didn't even have coming back up to the top division in my prediction. So Takerufuji back after a one Basho stint down in Juryo. He had been in the top division for so long. That streak was finally broken last Basho, but he made it a short break and he's back up in the top division. So I had this spot filled by Dayamami in my prediction, who went down to Juryo in order for Takerufuji to come up. I assumed that anti-Juryo bias would let Dayamami keep his spot. He deserved to be Maegashira 17 alongside like Tomokaze and Takerufuji. I thought he would go ahead of both of those guys just because, hey, he's the Maegashira. Let's let him keep his rank like Shoda Naomi did against the other Juryo Rikishi. I figured the same thing would happen, but obviously that was not the case. So I have Takerufuji being a luck of the Banzuke candidate here, since I didn't even have him making the top division in my prediction. And then at Maegashira 17 East, in a spot that I thought was going to be a coin toss between a Makuuchi Rikishi Miyogiryu and a Juryo Rikishi Takerufuji to come up to the spot. Turned out it was a dogfight between a couple of Makuuchi Rikishi to avoid dropping down to Juryo, Miyogiryu Dayamami, and Tsuru Gisho. In that case, Tsurugisho would reign supreme to take the Maegashira 17 East ranking after he drops 11 ranks following his 2-13 record. He was the next Rikishi that deserved to be ranked ahead of both Dayamami and Miyogiryu, so that is why he takes the Maegashira 17 rank here. So that is the Natsu Banzuke. We brought up 5 Juryo Rikishi up to the top division, those being Mitoryu, Oshoma, Toki Hayate, Tomokaze, and Takerufuji. And for that, we had to drop down 5 Makuuchi Rikishi, those being Shimazu Umi, Kita Nowaka, Miyogiryu, Endo, and Dayamami. So I do want to hover on these guys for a little bit. As I mentioned, Takerufuji recently broke his streak of being in the top division for so long, and we're seeing 2 other streaks come to an end here with Endo
Big
and
ones,
Miyogiryu. Yeah, these are all guys. All 3 of these guys had been in the top division since we started watching sumo back in 2016. So very impressive continuous streaks of being in the top division, being snapped here. So just another sign that changing of the tides is always coming, and some of these older guys are kind of shifting down to the bottom of the Banzuke, and who knows, maybe Miyogiryu or Endo, I think both of them have elder stock lined up for them. Maybe if things don't go right for them in Juryo, they decide to hang it up, or maybe they just decide to keep fighting because they enjoy doing sumo. So we'll see, but definitely kind of end of eras for Miyogiryu and Endo with their long-standing streaks of being in the top division being snapped here. The only guys that I can think of that were still in the top division when we started watching that have never been down to Juryo, Takayasu,
Tamawashi, yeah.
Was Mitakayumi and Shodai, were they up in the top division when we
If
started?
they were new at the time.
Yeah, they were very new, but I am very curious to see.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's about it. There's a couple of guys like Nishikigi that have been around that long but have bounced up and down a little bit.
Yeah, so Mitakayumi, he debuted in November of 2015, so he's always been in the top division since we've watched. Shodai debuted in the top division of January of 2016, so he's always been in the top division since we've been watching sumo. Like I said,
think Hokutofuji and Takakeisho are probably 2 of the next closest guys.
Yeah, so let's take a look at Takakeisho. Let's take a look at Hokutofuji. And all of these guys, these are the tadpoles. This was the generation that was the tadpoles.
Along with Asanoyama, Yutakiyama.
Yeah, so Hokutofuji Takakeisho debuted January of 2017. So our first sumo that we watched, Takakeisho was not yet in the top division.
Barely.
And Hokutofuji debuted in the top division in November of 2016, and the very first basho we watched was September. So Hokutofuji not in the top division. So yeah, it might be just those 4 guys, Takayasu, Tamawashi, Mitakayumi, and Shodai, that have unbroken streaks going back to September of 2016. I can't see anybody else that would fall into that category.
Terunofuji, but he dropped a little bit down the Banzuke, didn't he? Like maybe a little?
A smidge down to
a smidge.
Jonidan.
A speed bump.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I'm not going to linger on that any longer. We're just
all right. Memory lane, abandoned, condemned.
Yeah.
Moving on.
So how did I do on this Banzuke prediction? I got 26 bullseyes out of a possible 42, which is just 1 worse than last time. So for 62% overall. And I got 4 additional Rikishi at the correct rank, but on the wrong side. So I ended up with 30 total Rikishi at the correct rank, which was actually 1 better than last time, finishing with a percentage of 71%. So my score from this time to last time was actually the same, score of 56. But last time that was good enough for 16th. This time it was good enough for 91st.
Yeah. So you did about as good as before, but like relatively That's the
Yeah.
kicker, obviously, with Guess the Banzuke is if other people do well, that hurts you.
Right. Yeah. Because like I in the past, I finished with a score of 52 and got 32nd, a score of 45 and got 32nd, a score of 38 and got 62nd. Not nearly as bad. I had 52 once and got ninth. Um, so I've had this score plenty of times before. It's just the big thing is I got 91st out of 229. There's so many more
That's way
people
more. Okay.
participating in Guess the Bonds-K now that if you're not on it, there's just so many people that there's only so many combinations this Bonds-K is going to go in. And so there's just going to be a lot more people that can jump ahead of you. So yeah,
Somebody will have guessed the right things.
yes. Despite finishing 91st, I did come out with an equivalent winning record, an 8-7 record. So I keep my Kachikoshi streak going, which I've had intact since apparently September of 2021. So yay for that. I didn't finish in the bottom half. I was still technically in the top, not technically, I was absolutely in the top half of it.
Well into, yeah.
Yeah. It's just relative to everybody else was not as good this time. And as mentioned, I did drop to number 2 in the overall standings, but couldn't drop to number 2 behind anybody better than Leonid from the Tachi blog, who is number 1 in the Guess the Bonds-K standings. I don't think this is his first time as number 1. I'm pretty sure he's been there before.
Sure.
But he's definitely back there because kind of similar to me this time. He had one bad one. I think that put him in like the hundreds because he had the number of Sanyaku spots wrong in a prediction, and that just tanked his score for a little while. And I think, unfortunately, that's what we're going to see here because I've got the way the score works, it's accumulation of your previous 6 Bonds Ks. And so I'm replacing my previous Natsu score with this one, which is the 91st place, which unfortunately for me is replacing a 3rd place finish.
Your best placement ever. Yeah.
Yes, tied for my best score ever of 68 points.
Well, but it's your best relative finish, right?
No, I've got a 2nd place in there.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's such a bummer though. But it does say something that you've been so good and so consistent that finishing at like roughly the 40th percentile or something like that drops you from first all the way down to 2nd. Like you're still doing just fine.
Yeah, because
it'll just be hanging around your neck for a little while till we can get more higher scores, right?
Yeah, because if we look at my last 6 placements, we have this 91st, last time 16th, time before that 51st, and then 5th, 5th, 14th. So 2023, I was on a freaking heater. I was on one. I knew exactly what was coming up. This year, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
So my worst guess on this Banzuke was Tsurugisho, who I missed by 4 half ranks or 2 full numerical ranks because I had him landing at Maegashira 15 when he landed at Maegashira 17. Also, Takerufuji in there, but if I were to do a Juryo prediction, he would have been my Juryo 1 East, so ultimately missed him by 2 spots. I didn't have him on my prediction at all. So looking at the overall stats from this Banzuke, the biggest jumps up the Banzuke, we have Takerufuji with a jump of 11 ranks, and then the next highest jump is Takayasu jumping up 5 ranks from Maegashira 8 to Maegashira 3. So yeah, not really, besides Takerufuji, not like a whole lot of vertical movement on this one. It's kind of the same for the people dropping down the Banzuke. We had Tsurugisho dropping 11 ranks, and the next closest is Nishikigi dropping 7 ranks. And then after that, I can't think of anybody dropping more than 5 ranks like Takanosho did. So not a whole lot of vertical movement on this Banzuke besides the 2 kind of big ones. We've got 5 Rikishi that are going to be at their career high ranking, those being Onosato, Hiradoumi, Gonoyama, Takerufuji, and Mitoryu, and 2 additional Rikishi that are going to be making their Makuuchi debut, Oshoma and Toki Hayate. So I don't think I did a great job of mentioning all the snub and luck of the Banzuke candidates, but Jake, need your help choosing our snubs and lucks. So the three candidates I have for snub of the Banzuke: Takerufuji, Tsurugisho, and I did add Dayamami on here because he also suffered from treating Juryo Rikishi like real people for some reason this time. So Jake, of these three, who would you say got snubbed the most?
Gotta be Takerufuji. Historically, the lowest ever ranked Yusho winner.
Mhm.
That's you can't ignore that. That's got to take the title here, right?
Especially, yeah, I agree. Especially when you look at it in comparison with Terunofuji and Tokushoryu and where they ended up and who they jumped to get where they ended up on their Banzukes. It just doesn't line up. Takerufuji was obviously not treated the same as those two Rikishi.
Right.
Then we have our luck of the Banzuke candidates, Nishiki, basically for getting Sanyaku bias and not dropping as far as he could have following an abysmal 3-12 record. We got Ryuden dropping only one rank after a 6-9 record and going ahead of Juryo Rikishi Ashoma, who deserved to be 2 ranks ahead of him. And then also Takerufuji, just because I didn't predict him to be here.
And that's who I would pick, Takerufuji.
Okay.
For me, just getting into the upper division when you probably didn't deserve it. That's huge for him, like taking just that shorter trip to Juryo than it could have been, getting what we are kind of thinking of as an over promotion, especially when that over promotion puts him right past that threshold where he's going to get paid more. Mm-hmm. Good for him. That's about as lucky as it gets, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was kind of leaning towards Ryuden on this one just because it just seems so surprising. That was another one of like my biggest surprises with just him going ahead of Oshoma. It just didn't really make sense.
It's only a half a rank different one than you expected, but it's like there's no reason for it other than getting lucky, right?
Exactly. Especially he was already going to be under demoted after his 6-9 record. So we're shrinking that under demotion even more to be just one rank following a 6-9 record. Like besides the 2 7-8 guys that kept their previous rank, like his under demotion compared to like everybody else's, like percentage wise, he got the best treatment. Like him and Nishiki both got under demoted by 2 ranks, but like when you compare it to the expected demotion, Ryuden ended up a third of where he should have gone, whereas Nishiki ended up 7/9 of where he should have gone. I don't know that percentage.
Yeah, okay. It's impossible to know.
It's impossible. Who has calculators? Yeah. And then Jake, we were kind of all over the place for what my worst guess was going to be. We talked about Takerufuji. I was wrong on him, just the opposite direction I thought it was going to be. I did get Nishiki semi-right that he went ahead of that group of 3, but still kind of fumbled the overall ranking for that group of 4 Rikishi with Nishiki, Takanosho, and Koto Shoho Tamawashi. Yeah. And then obviously screwed the pooch with the Juryo promotees here. So we knew where I was going to be wrong on this one. We knew.
And they earned you some points, didn't they?
They absolutely did. So that is the Natsu Banzuke for 2024. Hopefully the Natsu Banzuke 2025 treats me a bit better. Treats me more like the 3rd place finish I got in 2023 and less like the 91st I got this year. So this Banzuke is all in support for the Natsu Basho, which is starting on May 12th, 2024. The second or third most important thing falling on that day, depending on how you rank Mother's Day and my birthday. My birthday 100% goes ahead of Sumo starting. Depends on where you want to put Mother's Day number 1 or my birthday number 1. It's okay.
You got to work on them tiebreaker rules to see how holidays match up.
Yeah.
Which holiday was on the east side last year?
My birthday, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
I think my birthday was on like a Friday or Saturday last year, which would come before Mother's Day, which obviously always on a Sunday.
Is it though?
Yes.
Oh. I guess that makes sense.
Mother's Day and the start of the Natsu Basho are always on the same day, the second Sunday of May, which coincidentally every 5 to 6 years is my birthday.
Wow. Okay. So it's actually not all that impressive.
No, it's not.
Never mind. I don't care anymore. It's not fun.
Coming up in the Jake, we got our newsletter sent out.
Yep. Newsletter's out. We'll talk about that more on the preview for the Natsu Basho, which will be coming out in about a week.
Yep. So you know where to find us on social media at this point. I do need to point out new Grand Sumo Breakdown t-shirt design is out.
Yeah.
Right,
I made that one during a very boring meeting and it was a lot of fun. Went for like an old school, like university style kind of, I was thinking like a crew neck. What would look good on a crew neck? And yeah, so yeah, check out our Redbubble store. There should be a link in the description below on YouTube. But yeah, we just make some fun designs and toss them up there. They're always available, and always easy to get just as one-off orders.
Mm-hmm. So we will be back in a week to discuss the Natsu Banzuke. But until then, throw your salt high and keep moving forward.
All right, I got a very angry infant I got to go take care of.
Oh, is he yelling and screaming?
Has it? I hope it hasn't come through the mic, but it feels like it might have because it's that loud.
I didn't hear anything. Yep, go run.
All
Take
right,
care of
see ya.
your baby. Bye.